Hello, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is a new video for you. This is called Storing Up a Good Foundation. So the Apostle Paul spoke about money in his letter to Timothy. We all know the famous verse that he shared. So he says in 1 Timothy 5 verse 6, now godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into this world, and as certain we will carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. A lot of wisdom in that. With food and clothing, you should be content with that. But those who desire to become rich fall into temptations and a snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. It was said that Judas was the man of perdition, and perdition is losing your salvation. It's going into a place where your salvation doesn't save you anymore. So it's serious stuff. So those who desire to be rich fall into a temptation and a snare, and many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. When you drown, you can almost drown and survive, but when you drown, you die. So Paul's talking about a spiritual death here. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves with many sorrows. So people have strayed from the faith. That means they've departed the faith. With the love of money, they've departed the faith. They've drowned in perdition. This is serious stuff. So how can we be wealthy and persevere? How can we survive if we're wealthy? You remember Jesus said it's harder for a rich man to go to heaven, to inherit heaven. It's harder for than a camel to go. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. And it's said that there was a gate called the Needle Gate in Jerusalem. But in order for a camel to get through the gate, it had to take everything off its back and squeeze through this hole. So it couldn't carry anything with it. So it's like a sign, if Jesus was talking about that needle gate, means that a person has to strip themselves of everything in order to go to heaven. But you, O man, flee these things and pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and gentleness. So Paul says flee these things, flee wanting to be rich, and instead pursue righteousness, godliness, faith, love, patience, and gentleness. It seems that money can take you out of the kingdom. The guy in Proverbs 31, he says, God grant that I don't live in lack and steal and curse your name, and grant that I don't have too much abundance, otherwise I'll depart from you. There was wisdom in that proverb, the person speaking in Proverbs. He understood that if he was in lack, he'd curse the Lord, and if he had too much, he'd depart from the Lord. The problem with the modern age is that we have a lot of wealth. Paul would consider even someone on a pension, even someone on government assistance in America lives better than people that were kings in the past. They have flushing toilets, they have microwaves, they have DVDs, they have computers, they have iPhones, they have all the modern conveniences, and they're on government assistance. Don't consider for one moment that you're not rich. And this isn't talking about billionaires, but people who want to be rich, but those who desire to be rich fall into temptation and a snare into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. So he goes on to say that for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. So there's a clear warning by Paul. There's a clear warning by Paul. Don't pursue riches. It's okay to have wealth. Some men of God and women of God are really blessed in business and really blessed and give to the Lord and finance the Lord's kingdom. And there's some people who manage money really well. And before they were wealthy, they were giving away 50% of what they earned. When they become billionaires, they're giving away 90% of their income. They're the sorts of people the Lord loves. But so many people who want the riches of the wicked getting stored up for the righteous, so many people that hear that and hear that preached, they want to be a millionaire, and they say that they want to be a millionaire so they can share it with other people, but they're not currently giving 30% of their income when they're poor away. They're not even tithing 10%. So many people want wealth, but it's not because of the Lord. It's not to sow more into kingdom. Here was the Apostle Paul, one of the greatest apostles, person who wrote a third of the New Testament. He used to build tents and make tents for rich people to finance his ministry. He used to work full-time and then minister part-time. Here's a person who spoke on money often, and he's someone to pay attention to. So how does the Apostle Paul suggest that we store up a good foundation for ourselves? How does he suggest that us wealthy and rich people operate? He says to Timothy, command those who are rich in this present age not to be haughty, not to be proud, not to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. So first of all, don't be proud, don't trust in uncertain riches, but he says, but we should trust in the living God who gives us to us richly all that things to enjoy. So firstly, don't be proud. Secondly, don't trust in uncertain riches that can be here today and gone tomorrow, but trust in the living God that gives to us richly. Now, this rich person, let him do good, that he may be rich in good works, ready to give and willing to share. So that's how we should be. Talking about we who've got an income, even me on a disability pension, we in the West who are rich compared to most of the world that lives on $2 a day. We are to, what are we to do? We're to be rich in good works, ready to give and willing to share. That's what we're to do. That's how we build up a good foundation, storing up for themselves a good foundation for the time to come, that they may lay hold of eternal life. So here is the Apostle Paul saying how to store up a good foundation. He's saying we be ready to give, willing to share, and I turned the scripture verse away, but you heard what I quoted before. We are to bless other people. We're to be used to share our money, to give our money, to support other people, to support people who aren't as wealthy as ourselves, to be willing to give, willing to share, and be a blessing to people. That's how we store up a good foundation. It's only if you're doing that, it's only if you're sharing and giving and blessing other people before you become wealthy, that you'll continue to give when you're wealthy. If you are earning $1,000 every 2 weeks with your income, and you're giving $300 of that $1,000 to needy people and to the Lord in ministries, when you're earning $1 million a week, would you give away 300,000 or would you be giving away 500,000? You need to develop a habit. It needs to be habitual. It's a statistic. I've heard a statistic that people earning more than $50,000 in the States give a lot less than people that are earning a lower income. I haven't got the statistic for you, but I certainly quoted the statistic in another book of mine. I heard from a prophet called Sean Boltz, who consults billionaires and even Christian billionaires. And he says a lot of them are really stingy when it comes to money. And that's a quote from Sean Boltz. So it doesn't necessarily translate that if you're a Christian and you've got a lot of money, that you share a lot of money. He says one thing that the Christian billionaires get sick of is churches asking them for money. So that's sad, isn't it? And it's so true that when you're in ministry and you hear of someone who's got a lot of money, you've got needs for your ministry and you sort of want to coach that person into maybe giving you some money. I know recently I heard of a person who was involved and is going to have a lot of money, and it took self-control not to actually say, hey, what about me? It isn't fair. I've had enough and I want my share. Just a song I used to sing. So, what about me? So, have you got the message? We need to be willing to share, ready to give, and use those attributes to store up a good foundation for ourselves. It's very dangerous going to a place where you have a lot of money. The people in the West go to doctors and get prescriptions instead of going to God for their needs. And the richer we become in the West, the more lukewarm we are, the less we have a need for God. Over in Africa, where they've got no money, they've got real needs for God. Some of those people get sick and their only chance is to be healed by God. In America, in Australia where I live, we go to the doctor, we take a pill and it fixes that sickness. we get a headache and we reach for medication rather than laying our hands on the head and healing the headache. I want to smile. I want to smile at you, give you a wink and say, God bless you. But that's the way to build up a good foundation. Giving. Giving is the way. Giving is the way. Giving is the way. That's the way to store up a good foundation. Not hoarding and having to yourself and getting all the best that the world can offer. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you would listen to my words and the words from the Apostle Paul, who was very knowledgeable and a person who has impacted millions of people throughout the centuries with what he wrote in the Bible. I encourage you to consider obeying what he taught Timothy to do. And may the God bless you and keep you. And if you've got any comments, please comment down below in the comments section on the video. And have a good day. Arrivederci. I didn't even say that right. I don't know how to say that word. See, there's certain things, I want to tell you something, the big admission, right? The big admission on this YouTube video. And you get the big admission right at the end. So if you stay to the end, you see it. There's many things that I don't know. There's many things that I don't know. But as a teacher, I've always got an open mind trying to get my questions answered, and I've got hundreds of questions. So there's many things that I don't know, and I pretty much only teach on the things that I know. God bless.